This is not breaking news. This is not a scandal. This is not about one person. There is an organization that controls economic policy in 190 countries. You've never heard of it? 99% of people can't even name it. But this organization has more power over your life than any government you've ever voted for. It can force a democratically elected government to cut pensions, to privatize hospitals, to fire teachers. It can take national resources built over generations and sell them to foreign corporations. And it answers to no one. No electorate, no accountability. What is this organization? It's called the International Monetary Fund, the IMF. But here's the thing. What they really do will disgust you. Stay with me, because this system goes deep, far deeper than you've been told. And it's not just about money, it's about power. And right now, that power is out of control. Asterisk, asterisk. Want to know what this organization really does? Asterisk, asterisk. Stay tuned. The IMF doesn't exist in a vacuum. It controls the global economic system. Now, forget about the individual figures you've seen in headlines. Forget the personalities. The IMF's true power lies not in the hands of any single leader, but in its ability to shape the very framework of financial control. Imagine this, a country in financial turmoil, a government with no options left. It turns to the IMF for help. The IMF swoops in with its solution. It demands cuts. It demands privatizations. It demands austerity, all in exchange for money. But here's the twist. The IMF is not in the business of solving crises. It's in the business of creating them so it can control the solution. That's where the real danger is. Not in the debt itself, but in how the IMF's demands lock countries into an eternal cycle of dependency. And who benefits from it? Not the countries, not the people, the corporations, the banks, the global elites. This isn't just a financial system. It's a financial prison. Asterisk, asterisk. Want to see how it works in action? Asterisk, asterisk. Let's dive deeper. This didn't happen overnight. In fact, it didn't even happen quickly. What's most dangerous about the IMF is how it has quietly reshaped the global economic landscape over decades. It wasn't an overnight takeover. It was a slow, almost invisible shift. In the 1,940 seconds after World War II, the IMF was created to stabilize global markets. But the reality of what it became, an enforcer of debt, an architect of dependency, wasn't immediately clear. At first, it seemed like a lifeline for struggling nations. Loans came with promises of stability, of recovery, but that recovery never came. Instead, countries began falling into patterns they couldn't escape. Borrowing to fix a crisis, agreeing to IMF conditions, and then sinking deeper into debt. The initial solution was the beginning of the problem. What started as a tool for short-term stabilization became the cornerstone of a global debt trap. And it's this shift, a shift that most people never saw, that's caused the real damage. The IMF didn't just change the rules. It made sure you'd never see the game. Asterisk, asterisk. So what happens when the system becomes the trap? Asterisk, asterisk. Let's take a closer look. Let's look at what happens when the IMF's solutions hit the ground. Take Jamaica, for example. In the 1,970 seconds and 80 seconds, the country borrowed heavily from the IMF. The conditions were simple. Cut public spending, devalue the currency, privatize everything. And what happened? Healthcare budgets were slashed by 50%. Education spending dropped by 30%. Hospitals ran out of basic supplies. Schools went without books. Teachers were laid off. But debt repayments? Those didn't stop. Jamaica's government spent more on servicing its debt than on its entire healthcare and education systems combined. And what did the IMF have to say about that? Nothing. They got their money, and the people were left with nothing. This isn't an isolated case. It's the pattern. A crisis hits. The IMF steps in with its cure. But the cure only worsens the disease. Asterisk, asterisk. And it's not just Jamaica. Asterisk, asterisk. But we'll get to that soon. The IMF doesn't just impose austerity and privatization. It forces a hidden agenda. Let's break down how it really works. On the surface, it might seem like the IMF's conditions are about fixing the economy. But look closer. What they're really doing is extracting value. They don't care if the country recovers, they care about the money. The IMF forces governments to privatize national assets, things like water, electricity, and telecommunications. These assets, built up over generations, are sold off at rock-bottom prices. And guess who buys them? Foreign corporations, multinational giants with endless resources. And who gets the profits? Not the people, not the country. Those profits flow to the wealthiest nations, the ones that control the IMF. Meanwhile, the country, it's left with the bill. But the real cost isn't just financial, it's sovereignty, it's control, it's the ability to chart your own path. The IMF doesn't offer solutions, it sells dependency. Asterisk, asterisk. So who really benefits from this system? Asterisk, asterisk. Let's look at the global impact. Now let's speed up a bit. Argentina in the 1,990 seconds. The IMF hailed Argentina as a model for economic recovery. Massive privatization, total deregulation, a shining example of IMF success. But then, in 2001, everything collapsed. The currency crashed, banks closed, poverty soared, more than 50% of the population was plunged into poverty. Millions of middle-class Argentinians were suddenly on the streets. They lost everything. The IMF? They got paid. The banks? They got paid. The people? Left to pick up the pieces. This isn't just an accident. This is the inevitable result of the IMF's policies. Economic destruction masked as a cure. Argentina followed the IMF's recipe, and it ended in ruin. And the IMF? It walked away with its profits. Asterisk, asterisk. And the world kept spinning. But who paid the price? Asterisk, asterisk. You know the answer. Now, let's get personal. Imagine you're a teacher in Jamaica. You've spent your life educating children, preparing them for the future. But one day, the government announces cuts to your salary. Teachers are being fired, schools are closing, and basic supplies are running out. Your work doesn't matter anymore. Your efforts aren't valued. And you, like thousands of others, are left to watch as the country's future is sacrificed on the altar of IMF demands. Or maybe you're a doctor in Greece, working in a hospital where the budget has been slashed by 40%. Your patients are dying, not from disease, but from the lack of care. Medicines run out, equipment breaks, and you can do nothing. You've seen the cuts, you've seen the collapse. And yet, the banks and the creditors are paid in full. This is the human cost of the IMF's policies. This is the invisible wound. Asterisk, asterisk. And it's not just numbers or headlines. Asterisk, asterisk. It's you. It's people like you who have worked, struggled, and given everything. And now you're watching your world fall apart. All because the IMF has decided your country is nothing more than a source of profit. Asterisk, asterisk. The question is, will you accept this? Asterisk, asterisk. Because the system thrives on your silence. And here's the thing. This is no longer just a local problem. It's a global one. The IMF's reach isn't limited to a few struggling nations. It spreads far and wide like a shadow over the global economy. The countries trapped by debt, they're not isolated. Their struggles ripple across borders. The IMF's policies don't just hurt one nation, they destabilize entire regions. Take Greece. Their economic collapse wasn't just a Greek issue, it sent shockwaves across Europe. Unemployment, poverty, and social unrest spread far beyond their borders. And in Argentina, the crash didn't stay in Buenos Aires. It reached into the heart of the global financial system. Investors in Europe and North America felt the sting. Now, think about the long-term effects. Every country that gets pulled into this cycle of debt and austerity becomes a cog in the machine, a machine that's built to keep the rich countries in control. As long as the IMF keeps extracting, it ensures the poor remain dependent. Asterisk, asterisk. This isn't just an economic crisis. It's a global crisis. Asterisk, asterisk. And it's only getting worse. So what happens next? Where does this system take us? There are three possible paths. 1. Asterisk, asterisk, adjustment, asterisk, asterisk. Countries might push back. They might find new ways to manage their economies without the IMF's grip. They could renegotiate their debts, reassert economic sovereignty, and build an alternative economic model. But this is not easy. It requires immense political will, and the IMF is not going to give up its control quietly. Erosion, or countries could continue down the current path, but slowly erode their ability to govern. Gradually, one by one, nations become weaker. Debt mounts. Austerity measures tighten. And over time, the cost of resistance becomes too high. The economic sovereignty of entire regions could be wiped away piece by piece until it's all gone. Rupture. Finally, we might face a rupture, a major economic collapse triggered by the IMF's failed policies, a catastrophic event that disrupts the entire system. It could be a crisis of confidence, a global financial meltdown, or even a social uprising that forces the IMF to reckon with its broken promises. This would be the ultimate test, a collapse of the global financial system as we know it. The truth is, we don't know which path we'll take. But one thing is clear. The IMF's policies cannot continue without breaking the system. Asterisk, asterisk. The question is, how much longer can we go before the breaking point? Asterisk, asterisk. This system has been in place for decades. It's built on debt, control, and extraction. And the IMF? It's not a neutral player. It's not a savior. It's a machine designed to benefit the few at the expense of the many. The damage is already done. And if we don't wake up, it will only get worse. Because as long as countries remain in debt, they remain under the control of the global elites. They remain colonies of finance. This isn't just about numbers or policies. It's about real people. It's about you, your future, the future of every person on this planet who refuses to stay silent. So ask yourself, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you keep letting this system destroy lives, yours, your children's, your neighbors? Or will you choose to stand up, to speak out, and demand a future without this financial slavery? The world is changing, but the question remains, who will control it? The bankers, the corporations, or will you choose to take back your sovereignty? Stay informed, share this message. And in the next video, I'll show you how the World Bank is working alongside the IMF to continue this cycle of control. You won't want to miss that. Asterisk, asterisk, because this system won't fix itself. Asterisk, asterisk. It's up to you